Hi everyone, in today's lesson we are going to learn how to calculate a percentage of an amount with and without a calculator. You should be able to do this by the end of the lesson. So let's start with finding percentages without a calculator. In order to do this, there is a table of percentages that we need to learn. Okay, so we're going to go through these, how we get them, and then it's down to you to try and learn these yourself. So remember from last lesson, to change from a percentage into a fraction, we put that percentage over 100 and we simplify. So if I put 50 over 100, I can divide 50 into the top and the bottom to get me 1 over 2. So that is all we're doing in each case here. However, it will cut a lot of time off of our working if we can remember the simplified fractions. So 50% is 1/2. Now by doing the same with 25%, 25 over 100, we can simplify that down to 1 over 4. I've grouped 25% and 75% together because 75% is 3 times 25%, so it is 3/4, 3 over 4. 33 1/3%, well, the clue is in the percentage here. The answer is 1/3. If you put 33 1/3 over 100, it works out as 1/3. 66 2/3% is double 33 1/3, so it is 2/3. 20%, if we put 20 over 100, that simplifies to 1 over 5. 40% is double 20%, so that is 2 over 5. 60% is 3 times 20%, so we have 3 over 5, and 80% is 4 times 20%, so that gives 4 over 5. If we put 10 over 100, that simplifies to 1 over 10. 30% is 3 times 10, so that is 3 over 10. 70% is 7 times 10, so that is 7 over 10. And 90% is 9 times 10, so that is 9 over 10. 1 over 100 does not simplify, and 100 over 100 will give you 1 whole, so 100% is 1 whole. So this is the table of values I expect you to remember. Even if you could just remember the first one of each little section, maybe you could work out the others, okay? So let's now use these in order to calculate some percentages. 20% of £5.50. Now it's very important that you use the same working that I use, okay? So if I go back to the table, 20% is 1 over 5. So the very first thing I do is I change 20% to the fraction. In order to find a fraction of a number, we divide by the bottom and times by the top. So we take the amount of £5.50, we divide by 5 and multiply by 1. This is non-calculator, so you may want to use a table to do this. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 does not go into 0. So £5.50 divided by 5 is £1.10, times it by 1, it keeps it the same. So that is all there is to it. The hardest thing is remembering what fraction is with what percentage. 33 1/3%, from the table we will see that this is equal to 1/3. The rule is divide by the bottom times by the top. And again, we can use a step sum to do this. 3 goes into 4 once with a remainder of 1, and 3 goes into 18 6 times. Multiply that by 1, you get the same. Okay. Now in example 2 is a little trickier because we do not have 2% in our table. If I go back to the table, we want to find a percent that we can relate easy to 2%, okay? So what I would go for is 1% because we know that 2 is double 1. So if we can find 1%, we can double our answers to get what 2% is. So let me start by calculating 1% of 800. Now 1% is 1 over 100 from the table. Which means I must divide 800 by the bottom and multiply by the top. 800 divided by 100 is 8. So that is me found 1%. Now 2% is just 2 times 1%. So if I take my answer of £8 and multiply that by 2, I can get my answer of £16. Now I'm going to do the same for 5%. I'm going to go back to the table and say, how can I relate any of my percentages to 5%? And there will be more than one way to do this, but we're looking for the easiest way. So the easiest way, I think, would be to find 10%, because then we can half our answer to get what 5% is. Okay, so 5% is 10% divided by 2. So let me start by finding 10% of £5. From our table, 10% is 1 over 10 as a fraction, which means we must divide by the bottom and multiply by the top. We learned last week how to do £5 divided by 10 without a calculator. Remember, you would move the decimal point back one place, and that would give me 50p. So that is me found 10%. However, I didn't want 10%, I want 5%, which means I need to divide 50p by 2. So the answer is 25p. Similarly, for example 3, we're going to think about how we can use our table of values to come up with 110%. So we don't just need to be multiplying or dividing these, we can also add percentages. 110% is just 100% plus 10%. So let me find both of these and then we can work out our answer. So 100%, remember, is just one whole. So that is equal to our whole number of $810. 10% is 1 over 10 as a fraction, so we need to calculate 1/10 of $810. We divide by the bottom, multiply by the top, which gives 81. So in order to calculate 110%, I must add these two numbers together, which is going to give me 891. So for 12%, I can take 10% and add 2%. Now we don't have 2% in our table of values, but remember what we done in the last question, you can find 1% and then double it, okay? So 2% is just 2 times 1%. So let's start by finding 10%. 10% is 1 over 10 as a fraction. So we divide by the bottom and times by the top, which gives me 120. In order to get 2%, I need to find 1% first. So that is 1 over 100. Divide by the bottom times by the top. Now we wish to get 2%, so I need to take 12 and times it by 2. Okay, so going back to what I said at the beginning, 12% is 10% plus 2%, which is 120 plus 24, which is 144. Okay, so in example 4 we have a problem solving question. A university noticed that 12.5% of new students dropped out in their first year. If there were 1,280 first year students, how many dropped out? So 12.5% is what we are interested in this time. Now there's loads of different ways we can make 12.5%. We could do 10% plus 2% plus 0.5%, but that would take us quite a while. The easiest way I can think of is taking 25% and dividing by 2. Okay, so remember, you can use your table of values at this stage, have it in front of you to remember what 25% is as a fraction. So that is 1 over 4 of 1,280 divide by the bottom times by the top. You can use a step sum to do this in. 4 does not go into 1, so we carry. 4 goes into 12 3 times, 4 goes into 8 twice, and goes into 0 0 times. So our answer here is 320. Now to get 12.5%, we are going to take our 320 and divide it by 2. Which is going to give me 160. So our final answer is 160. Now, if you wish, you can pause the YouTube video here and try the first half of the exercise, which is all the non-calculator, and then you can continue this video and then try the second half, or you can just keep watching the video and then try it all. So finding percentages with a calculator. Reminder from the last lesson, to express any percentage as a fraction, we put the amount over 100. So for example, 28% is 28 over 100 as a fraction. Now we know that to find a fraction of a number, we divide by the bottom of the fraction and multiply by the top. So to find a percentage with a calculator, we divide by 100, which is the bottom of this fraction, and we multiply by the percentage, which becomes the top of the fraction. So let's try this. 28% of £50.50. So I take my amount, which is £50.50. I divide by 100, which would be the bottom of this as a fraction, and I multiply by the percentage, which is the top. And you can put all of that in your calculator, which gives you £14.14. The second one, we take 120 centimetres, we divide by 100, which would be the bottom of the fraction, and multiply by the percentage of 14. Put all that in your calculator and that gives you 16.8 centimetres. It is important that we show that middle line of work in the divide by 100 times by the percentage. Okay, problem solving then. There were 5,850 people using a ski slope yesterday. 32% of them had never been skiing before. How many had never been skiing before? So that is 32% of 5,850. We take the 5,850, divide by the bottom and multiply by the percentage. Which is 1,872. Continuing this example, the cost of using the ski slope was £45 per day. A 12% discount was given yesterday. How much money was taken off of the price? So what they're asking us for is 12% of £45. So we take our amount of 45, we divide by 100, we multiply by 12, which gives us £5.40. Okay guys, that is all for today. Please make sure you check the teams to see what the exercise is.